My name is Nir,
And my name is Cora.
and you're watching Anime TV.
Yay!
Welcome back to another episode of Anime TV, recorded in the hub of Super Cool Nerd Show, located in the lovely Dallas, Texas. Beside me is the Anime TV crew. Got my co-host Cora
Hello, everyone.
behind the board, making things sound pretty, but doesn't really like to show his face because he's camera shy. We've got Jason the X. We're a bunch of nerds, anime fanatics. We're strange beasts, but unlike our lovely city, we can generally be found in cages, located in someone's dark, damp basement, barely seeing the light of day. But every 2 weeks, we are briefly released to do whatever we want to do with our newfound freedom. We decide to do what we always do. Let's talk about anime.
Wait, so we're not taking over the world?
That's next week.
Oh, okay.
There's so many shows out there, it's hard to know what to watch, and that's what we're here for. Hopefully, by the time we're done rambling about different animes, you'll know which ones to watch and which ones not to watch. If you don't trust our opinions, that's fine. I wouldn't trust them either. But we like to hear your opinions, so if you want to learn how to be a fan reviewer, stick around to the end of the episode, and we'll tell you how. But until then, let's watch some anime. Oh, video games, how we love them. If you're anything like Cora and myself, you discovered a love for video games probably when you were younger, but then you truly fell into them when you were in high school. I mean, how can you not love video games? They've got beautiful characters, beautiful story, beautiful soundtrack. That sounds very familiar to something else we talk about on this show. But they also help take off your mind and just make you think about other things than the atrocities of life, especially in high school, where you have to think about things like homework, tests, drama, and then, of course, there's that horrible thing called love. Oh my goodness, is it hard to watch. But you don't want to look too far into love when you could play video games. I mean, especially when, you can play video games. Love is so complicated, it's so hard to get behind, that it just becomes a horrible, miscommunicated mess if you try to look too deeply into it. And unfortunately, that is the topic of this week's anime, Gamers.
I came to this room for the sole reason of getting to meet Miss Hoshinomori.
You're all sweaty from running over here! Maybe those drinks at the cafe were right about you, nerd! My skin has been softer than a baby's butt cheek! Awful! You're just awful! How come my boyfriend is going to all this trouble to start a gamer meetup if it's just him and you and two cute girls?
I'm sorry. Could you two try and keep it down?
We'll be quiet.
Gamers is interesting.
Gamers, you know what? Interesting is a good word for that.
So I went into this anime thinking it was something completely different. When I first went into the anime, because I didn't actually read the description for the anime when I first came across it, I thought it was going to be one of those shows that kind of delved into a bunch of high school characters wanting to know more about gaming, wanting to play different games, and then have maybe that VR experience, because that's becoming more popular in the genre now.
Yeah.
And it's a newer title. So it was one of those things where I was like, this is going to be awesome, because then you watch the first trailer and all it is them having a montage of playing different games as their character. It's like Tetris and dating sims, and then this really cool fight scene of the giant rock monster. And I was like, this is going to be great. And then it wasn't that.
Yeah. It was definitely, like, I didn't read the synopsis before watching. I tend to, especially for the show, I'll just dive right in because I don't want it to
cloud your judgment.
Cloud my judgment. I want to experience it how I do. And normally I give an anime or a new show a 3-episode window to catch my interest. If it hasn't caught my interest by the end of 3 episodes, then it's not worth it for me.
My wife has the same rule about all sorts of shows as well. She has that 3-episode rule as well.
It's a good rule, especially because the first episode of a show isn't always everything the show's about.
Oh, no, you're right.
Which, with gamers, I feel if you only see the first episode, you're kind of clouded on what the show has.
They don't even introduce all of the main characters until like episode 2 or 3.
Right, and that aside, there was so much more fan service than I was expecting in the first episode. There was so much
Yes.
secondhand embarrassment
There you go.
in the first episode than I expected. All of these different things combined together, and had I not watched until the second episode, I wouldn't have understood. Oh, that's not literally every episode.
Yeah.
Because
So
dear God, that I can't do that.
my wife watched this show alongside me when I was watching it, and there's parts of the show that have fan service to it, and there's not a lot of fan service in the show. But the parts that do have some fan service doesn't match what the show is, like the title cards. Like in the middle of the episode, normally where you would go to commercial break if it was playing live, in that case they have gamers, and it shows like a sexy gamer like holding a controller.
I did not like that.
It literally doesn't make sense because that had nothing to do with the show. So I was very confused when those popped up. And then after like episode 8, I was like, okay, they're just reusing the exact same cards. They use the exact same one both times. And I never read the story. I never read the manga. I never read anything like that. Like I said, I went into this completely blind as well. And I just kind of went, okay, that's there. I'm just going to like get past it. It didn't bother me because it didn't really influence the story. It was just kind of there. And then again, like the fan service shows up at the end of the episode as well. Once it's done, it shows one of the 3 girls in like a bikini or some kind of like fan servicey pose. And again, it doesn't make sense because there's one swimsuit episode that kind of makes sense for why it's there, the way that they approach it, because it doesn't start off as we're doing swimsuits for the entire episode.
Yeah.
They're literally in swimsuits for like 5 minutes, and then again they're playing games. It's just one of those things where again the title card and end cards don't make sense to why they're there. But again, you just kind of either you love it or you hate it. You just kind of move past it.
I wasn't a big fan of it since it didn't fit with the theme of the show, kind of thing. Like while there were fan service moments in the show, they weren't like, oh no, you caught me in a state of undress kind of thing.
Yeah, this was a very down to earth high school type of romance drama.
Yeah, it's like I'm gonna look at her legs and where her skirt ends up, and I'm gonna look at her chest, and it's gonna all be covered and everything.
It fit what it would normally be if you were in high school. If you're a high school, and like especially like you're a boy in high school or a girl in high school, doesn't matter which one you go. You have the same appeal to the way you look at girls, and because all the hormones are hitting, so it was the same thing. It's like, okay, they're wearing their uniform. It's not like, oh, I just walked into the girls' locker room. It was just, okay, she's very pretty, and you look at the pretty parts.
Yeah.
That's what it was. But like I said, I went into this thinking it was something completely different. I thought it was going to be some kind of really awesome VR anime related thing, and I was like, okay, cool, all the characters are going to come together, or they're all friends. But they didn't even know each other in the beginning. I think it was, so you have your main character, Amino, who is this like awkward, geeky kid who I related to a lot, where he loves certain like random games. Like you could tell he likes action anime, not anime, but he likes action video games, story related video games. But then he also secretly loves dating sim games because, I mean, sometimes you're just a sucker for that kind of stuff too.
Because this magical rectangle they've smushed all of the game's best selling points into, worded and arranged for maximum hype. Even if the game ends up sucking, it's still an awesome way. Look at her.
You know what? I just gotta say, if you're gonna like dating sims, own up to it. I mean, come on, they're great.
Dating sims, it's one of those things where he didn't own up to it because he was still embarrassed about it in high school, like you normally would be. So he runs into the very popular girl, Tendo, in a gaming store while he's trying to pick up one. And I believe the exact words were, this game has updated jiggle physics.
Yes.
They never show you the updated jiggle physics, by the way. But it was just one of those things where he was like, oh, all right, I really want to play this game. And then he gets really embarrassed about talking to Tendo. And then Tendo's like, oh, you should join our gaming club. And I was like, so that's where it's going to come into play with the video game stuff. So he takes him to the gaming club, and then everyone there is super intense with playing games. And
they're all competitive gamers.
Yeah,
like
that's what they do.
One is a fighting game, like the side-scrolling kind of thing, and the other is like a first-person shooter.
And then they introduce one more member to the game club who's like a puzzle-related guy. He's just like almost like he loves Tetris a lot. Which, I mean, who doesn't love Tetris? I mean, I'm a big fan of Tetris myself. But so he's in there and he's playing. He's having a lot of fun. And then they just keep forcing it. And I related to Amino in that way. I love playing games until you sit down and force me to play a game. And then he does what I wasn't expecting, which is like, this isn't for me. I think I'm going to go. And I was like, okay, I have no idea where the story is going from here. Because like I said, it didn't become that. It became a high school drama about playing games, but mainly it was a rom-com. And I'm not gonna lie, I'm a sucker for rom-coms. I do like rom-coms. Certain ones are great, certain ones aren't. It's my guilty pleasure. Stop giving me that look.
A lot of judgment from behind the board, but go ahead.
You give me judgment every day, all right? But it was one of those things where I'm like, I like certain rom-com ones because they're a little bit slower paced, and it's one of those things where you can get really attached to the characters, and you know, some of the characters are drawn really well. You love the way that they look. Some of the characters go through changes. Like Hoshinomori was one of those characters. I think she's introduced in either episode 2 or 3. I can't remember. But she's got like this long hair. She looks really depressing. Like she's...
Oh yeah, she was shown in the first episode and in the second episode.
Yeah, she's there, and then because it's high school, you just like who you like, and that stuff changes just as it always does. So Hoshinomori is talking to Amino's best friend. I cannot remember his name anymore, but he's, you know, a taller gentleman. He's voiced by Clifford Chaplin, who does a great job, and she instantly is like smitten with just the way that he talks to her, and he's like, you know, you'd be really cute with short hair, and then next episode shows up with short hair.
And it turns out I was right about you. You're cute as hell. Cute as hell. Cute as hell. Seriously, Uehara?
And he was right. She was really cute when she had short hair. She was cute before, but then they drew like the shadows under her eyes, and it was just one of those types of shows where you're like, okay, well, I mean, that's just the way a character's drawn. It's an anime. But I liked that they explained all the different hair colors too. Because like she has blue hair, but that you could just describe that as like a darker version of black hair without drawing black hair characters. But then you had I think it's Chiaki is her name, and she's got pink hair.
Yeah,
it's a Guri. That's what it is. She's got pink hair, and she tells you she dyes it.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, so there's more realism behind this than I thought, and that really appealed to me. Because if we're going to do it this way, take the VR aspect, we're keeping realism in here.
Yeah.
And I could get behind that. So, like, the story flowed well, and it just kept going with twists and turns, and I found it amusing.
I'm not going to lie, I didn't really watch too far past the second episode. For me, it really didn't keep my interest in that regard. I liked some of the characters, but they weren't compelling enough to keep me entertained. And I
can't blame you there.
Like in the first episode, like my opinion of him changed, but not by much. The Chiaki's boyfriend.
Yeah.
The minute he showed up on screen, like, man, it'd be really great to sink my fist into your face. I did not like him at all. And I still don't really like super duper like him. His girlfriend, my favorite character.
She's adorable.
I love her. She is pure and wonderful, and I love her.
Newlywed life is going great. You get pregnant with your first child on your honeymoon. You and your spouse receive 3,000 yen in gifts from everyone.
This game is such BS! What the heck? We've been married for a minute and you're pregnant already?
You weren't complaining during the honeymoon part. This is at least half your fault, mister.
And I do like her with him. I think they make a great couple, but I don't like him separate.
It was really funny because there was a lot of friendships that kind of came from those characters meeting. So like Amino and Aguri really hit it off as friends, trying to save her relationship that wasn't in trouble. So the entire show basically wraps around like miscommunication. Everybody thinks someone's cheating on somebody. It's absolutely ridiculous. Like just because he tells one girl that she would look cute with short hair and then confirms that she looks cute with short hair, he's trying to set Hoshinomori up with Amino because he thinks they would be really great together. And Aguri thinks that means that they're hitting on each other and they started dating behind the scenes and he's cheating on her. While Amino thinks the exact same thing, but then Amino's like, well, he's my best friend, but he also has a crush on Tendo, who I have a crush on, but I don't have the ability to get into that either. Like she's too high above me, which technically based off of their high school stature, you could kind of see because of the way that clicks happen. Because everyone's fawning over her. She's got love letters in her locker that she's got to clean out every day.
She's the most popular girl in the school. She's that trope.
Nobody knows who Amino is, which is fair. Like the main characters, like Amino's best friend, even thought he was an annoying kid because he just was like, that kid always plays like games. He's always to himself. Like I'm a gamer too, but that guy's just weird. And then he got to know him and they were like, okay, we're really cool friends now. We just hit it off. It was one of those things that just like normal, if you don't talk to somebody, you'll never know if they're actually someone worth talking to. So like the characters together all fit really well. Like Tendo really does well with everybody else when she's not thinking that Amino doesn't like her, or when Aguri is with everybody, she's still really supportive, regardless of the fact that she's got like 8 million like scenarios in her head of who's cheating on who.
Yeah.
It got ridiculous. But one of the things that I liked about this anime was in most rom-com stuff, you spend the next season to 4 seasons building up certain love interests to love each other. And like halfway through, Amino accidentally confesses to Tendo and she accepts. And then you're like, okay, well, where are we moving forward from here? And then after like the next episode, she thinks, oh, well, he's probably going to take it back. It was the heat of the moment. And he's like, no, I'm just going to ask you out properly this time. So they went ahead and continue to start dating. And then they continue to date until the end of the season because that's just the season ends. And I'm pretty sure it goes on in the stories as well. But there's all sorts of different like love that's happening. You get introduced to Hoshinomori's little sister who also kind of has a crush on him, but doesn't. But then Hoshinomori finds out that Amino is really the person that's playing the game online with her the entire time and always supportive of her game development. So then she ends up having a crush on Amino. So it's like a love pentagon. And that got annoying to me.
Yeah, so one of my biggest pet peeves, and this is in any form of anime, especially anime because it seems to pop up more here, is love triangles and love shapes of any kind. Because it's unnecessary romance drama for the sake of trying to input drama. There are different ways you can input that level of suspense into a story, even if you're trying to keep it on a more realistic setting. Having this I like this person, but this person likes this person, and so we're gonna have this triangle thing go on.
There's an actual grid that somebody made in the show that said the same thing, and I'll find it and we'll put it in the episode. But it's just as confusing. There's some other, like I've said, I've watched other romance stuff because some of those are done really well, and a lot of those are done a little better. So overall, I really like Gamers. I've watched it twice now. Once was like a while back, like maybe over a year ago when I found it the first time, and then I rewatched it again for the show to get ready for the show. And my opinion kind of stayed the same. It was just more of this is really annoying, the whole back and forth between certain characters cheating.
Aguri's making a guilty-ass face and she's totally staring at me! Which means she's 100% hooking up with Amino and knows this is all a charade, so she's scoping out my reaction! Son of a bitch!
Yeah.
I prefer it when it's like a who's gonna win type of scenario. Like, generally, it can get annoying when a character doesn't confess to the main girl. You're like, okay, well, eventually you'll get there. Who knows when you'll get there? Either other stories, like if it's an action story like My Hero Academia, where that's not the front-running storyline, you don't care and you're okay with that. And then you have other ones, like there's a show we'll review soon that does it a little bit better. But even then, it's like a who's he going to end up with type of storyline, but the drama in there isn't the same. Like, that's this. And this one I found really annoying, and I only watched it 12 episodes. And if there was more, I would probably still watch just to see how it would end. But ultimately, it was just one of those shows that I was like, I don't, no one's, if you just talk to somebody, if you just sat down and talked to them, like, that would be fine.
It definitely shows, especially in anime and in real life, like to make that bridge, that communication is important, especially in relationships. And I think part of the joke or thing there is gamers aren't good at communication.
No.
Because don't you dare lie to me and tell me that you're good at communication when you go into raids and dungeons and, make fun of the new people because they can't do it right instead of helping them. Instead of being like, maybe you should do it this way next time, you say things like, get out of here, noob, don't come here again. I hope you, or at the beginning of a thing, whose first dungeon is this? Because I really don't want to explain the mechanics to a noob.
You have different communication when it's with your friends, because even if you're like playing with friends, like there's I can't speak now. There's
communication.
There we go. There's miscommunication between even just the crew of Super Cool Nerd Show, and it's not like bad stuff. It's just like, oh, well, someone got the date wrong or something did this. It happens. It's not perfect, but if you don't communicate well, then things get blown out of proportion, and Gamers shows that really well. But it's I honestly think they do a really good job at showing that. I just didn't care.
Yeah.
Like, I honestly do like the series, and the voice acting's phenomenal.
Yeah, I will say, with the voice acting especially, because I watched it in both the dub and in the sub. Because I don't have the money to spend on, like, Crunchyroll and Funimation.
Oh, you just talk to me.
I found a video online on YouTube that has all 12 episodes in one video, and it's all subbed. And I'd seen the first episode dubbed, so I got to see a little bit of both. And I have to say, this is one of those few times where I can agree that both are fine, because the script really didn't change much between the dub and the sub. The voices were fine, and they didn't like blow out the mic yelling constantly.
Oh yeah, and there's a lot of yelling in the show too.
I mean, there's a lot of yelling in the show, but it was one of those, they're actually yelling so they can yell now, and not like half of dubbed anime that happens where we're just going to yell because that's how emotions work, isn't it?
Yeah, like, and I didn't watch the sub, but in the dub, whenever they're actually yelling, they're yelling for an actual purpose. Like they're yelling to actually yell, or they're yelling internally in their head, the same way you kind of would if you're freaking out. Like they get louder, you hear panic. They do a really good job. A lot of the cast, like I said, I was talking like the first member of the cast that I recognized immediately was Clifford Chaplin. He's Bakugo mainly in My Hero Academia. That's where I know him from. I've met him in person. He's a really cool guy. He's just one of those he's one of those characters that, because I'm usually used to hearing him yelling and screaming die all the time.
You stupid nerd!
Deku, you bastard!
It was one of those things where hearing him talk in this show was very different, but I still recognized the voice. So it was just watching a calm down version of Clifford Chaplin normally. And I was like, okay, well, that's really entertaining. And he's doing a really good job. But then you have people like Tia Lynn Ballard, who played Aguri. She does a lot of stuff from what I remember.
Yeah.
She's also in My Hero Academia, I believe. She's, I want to say she's 02 in Darling in the Franxx. She's in a lot of stuff. And I didn't even recognize that was her, because she has that range. Like 02 has such a different voice and compared to Aguri, and I'm just sitting here going, oh, okay. Like it wasn't until I looked it up. Like she's also Happy in Fairy Tail.
Yeah.
She's apparently in Fruits Baskets. She's in Borderlands 3 as Wick. It's because we're all like, sticking with gaming. We're all playing Borderlands 3 right now.
Oh, not me, but.
Then there's Brittany. I can't pronounce her last name. It's like Kabrowski. This probably was easier than I thought it was. She plays Tendo. Also does a really good job. She's also in Borderlands 3. There's just a lot of decent voice acting going around throughout all of the characters that it felt right. There wasn't a character that I was like, that voice doesn't really match.
Yeah.
And that happens in a lot of animes, especially dubbed animes, because when it's subbed, it's the first time you get to hear that character talk. So you kind of get used to it. But if you go in watching the dub, or even if you go in watching the sub, sometimes it just translates well. And I think they did a really good job overall with the actual voice acting of the show.
They really did. And like the tone was important. Like their vocal tones.
Oh yeah.
Were, no one was too super high and no one was too super low. They really did sound like potential high school students, which was nice. Like, I mean, it can work. Like Yu Yu Hakusho, the voices are a little deeper than what a middle school student would have, but it fits the tone of the show.
Right.
With this one that was trying to stick a little bit more in a realism type of realm, they focused on that with the voice acting, and it was great. It made the show feel better.
And like other parts of the show that I liked was the soundtrack. The soundtrack itself, normally I would say, doesn't feel like it was anything to write home about. The intro song is actually called Gamers, I believe. And it's not a bad song. It does fit the tone after knowing what the show is about. Like going in there thinking, oh, this is about some kind of, VR gaming stuff. It had made no sense. I went in there thinking this does not make any sense. But then after getting like 6 episodes in, knowing the fact that it's all about that romance and just the friendship of it all, I was like, oh, okay, now it makes sense. Now the graphics don't make sense, but it makes sense.
Yeah.
So like one didn't match with the other. So it was still good. Same thing with the ending song. I don't remember the ending song's title, but even then it wasn't bad. It fit the show. But it was the soundtrack in between that I thought was interesting. It was one of those things where, again, I don't think it's something to write home about, but because it was more of a romance show, after rewatching it the second time, I realized that the soundtrack they picked kind of matched what would happen if you were playing a dating sim.
Yeah.
So because of the dating sim music in the background, it felt more appropriate, which I got behind. So I really felt like they picked the right soundtrack to fit the tone. But again, when you don't care about part of what's happening in the show, the soundtrack still doesn't help you get there, because it's still just kind of drawing that confusion that's happening. And I mean, technically it did its job. It got me feeling the same thing that they felt. I just didn't want to be there.
Yeah, exactly.
So Oh, goodness. But overall, I think that Gamers was I can't speak. Back to communication. I think Gamers was a really good series overall. It's just you have to know what it is going into it.
Yeah.
I think it's worth checking out once, especially if you're a fan of like the romance rom-com type of series. I mean, you may not be a fan of all of them, but if you're looking for something a little bit more mellow to kind of watch and then have a little bit of drama in between, this is the right fit. This one's not going to kind of blow the drama out of proportion. It's just going to blow the miscommunication out of proportion. So I think it's worth checking out once. That's ultimately my opinion on it.
Yeah, like, and it's definitely how I feel is it's definitely like a subject to the three episode rule. If you're not sure if you're gonna like it or not, just based on what we've talked about, definitely give it at least 2 episodes, because you'll get the super fan service stuff out of the way, and you'll get the meat of what the show is gonna more so look at, and you'll get a feel for the animation, how the characters interact with each other, and the characters' personalities, to know that if you'll be able to handle that for 12 episodes.
I will say, if you do end up enjoying the series, go into it knowing it's not going to have a satisfying ending, because it was one of those shows that they got approved for a season and then didn't get renewed for another season. So it doesn't end on a solid note of, oh, well, Amino does end up with Tendo, or Amino does end up with Aguri, or with Hoshinomori. It doesn't. It's still going to have that drama to it. It ends on a somewhat sweet note, but at that point, they already put Hoshinomori's feelings into the mix, and you just kind of don't know who's going to end up with who.
Oh, so you mean like Ouran Host Club?
Never saw that one. But it was one of those shows that it doesn't end on that kind of solid note. So if you're going to watch it, just know that it doesn't end on like a super solid note. So you'll just have to accept that.
Yeah.
But what do our fans think? John F. from Burbank, California says, I love this anime. I'm usually not a fan of rom-com stuff, but I found it was actually amusing. I love the characters and the story. I do wish they'd focused more on the gaming, but there are other animes for that. I agree.
Yeah, makes sense. David W. from Albuquerque, New Mexico says, Gamers is just another bad twist on the love drama genre. It's an annoying whine fest of will they, won't they, with just as annoying overly whining characters. Not to mention the gaming part feels like an afterthought just to have a catchy title. I can agree with that. Like, they do focus in like the second episode on some games. Like, they got permission from Atlas to use Persona 4, which that caught me off guard. I mean, I was excited, but I was like, wait, that's actually Persona.
I laughed at that scene too, because his friend goes, I just picked the teddy bear thing because it looked cool. Like, I've only played Persona 4 Battle Arena.
It's not the cool character.
So I only played Persona 4 Battle Arena once with a buddy of mine back in Louisiana, and I picked the same character because I thought it looked weird. So it was the same exact reason I picked that character. But I do agree with the negative review in the aspect of gaming. They do a lot of gaming references, but they don't do it in a way of they're referencing gaming. There's a lot of stuff where they're just like, what? It's just a friend request. Or, oh, they're going to shoot me down like this. The way they do it, they reference a game, like a gaming aspect, but they don't actually focus on gaming. So I would agree.
Yeah. It's little throws just to catch the gamers that are also anime fans. But I mean, for some people, that's what they want, and that's fine.
Yeah.
So it's one of those all subjective things. Just remember that, folks.
Oh, hey, Amino. So what brings you by? Are you here to see Tendo, maybe?
Nuh-uh, not in the least. Believe me when I say that she's got nothing to do with why I'm here.
But I'm afraid it's not her.
Overall, we do like Gamers, and we recommend checking it out. Gamers is licensed by Funimation and can be found on the Funimation website and on their app, so please go support the official release. Then if you want to be a fan reviewer just the same way we did, make sure you leave a comment under our YouTube page that we're doing right now for this video. Go ahead and you can leave your comment there, or you can DM me at the Near Plasma, or you can DM Cora.
You can DM me on Instagram at Korodono, Korodono.
And you can DM our show's actual podcast page, which is going to be at Anime TV Cast. We will pick your review and we can read it on the show just like anything else.
Yep, and we usually do that for the next show that we're watching, which I'm very excited for the next one because I am a huge fan of delinquents in anime. Kuwabara is one of the best characters in Yu Yu Hakusho Fight Me. And so we are going to be taking a look at a classic. I consider it a classic anyway. Cromartie High School.
We'll be back in 2 weeks with our next review, and until then, just keep on watching some anime.
Yeah.